Hi, this is Michelle Ziegler, the cheerleading coordinator for the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. In cooperation with the New York State Cheerleading Judges Association, we are continuing our webinar series with our second monthly update generated by your questions. On this webinar today, we have Val Snellgrove, the president of the New York State Cheerleading Judges Association, and Casey Gall, the cheerleading state rules interpreter. The questions that we are answering have been submitted through the Google form on the NYSPHSAA website. We received a lot of questions during the month of September and early October, and we will go through these questions with you in order to provide all coaches with the same consistent information. This question was submitted along with the video and asks if the stunt shown in the video would be considered a one-man stunt. This stunt would not be considered a one-man stunt, but rather considered a show and go, because it does not remain static long enough to be awarded points for a one-man stunt. Our next question asks, if my team performs a single base skill without a front base, will they get point 6 for not using front spots? We can refer to the progression sheets where it states that single base stunts do not get sprinkle points for no front bases. If a one-man is two people touching it, then it is not a single base stunt, and therefore true one-mans will not get additional sprinkle points.
How do you determine whether a single-based stunt is assisted or unassisted? One-man unassisted stunt, the athletes must demonstrate the ability to get to hands without assistance. No secondary base or spotter may come in contact with the flyer or main base until the intended co-ed style skill has hit. Secondary base or spotter cannot be under the feet or participate in stabilizing the stunt.
Our next question asks, if you are doing a one-man in a pyramid and the middle flyer, while she is still on the ground, grabs the hands of the outside flyers and preps, then goes up to her one-man, is this a one-man assisted because the connection with the outside flyers, or a one-man unassisted because there is no other person holding her foot? This is considered a braced, unassisted skill and is awarded points in the pyramid only.
We were told that a handstand is straight arms and a shoulder press is bent arms. However, on cheerrules.org, bent arms is labeled as a handstand. They're both different point values on the rubric. Can we clarify which is a handstand and which is a shoulder press? Thanks for submitting this question. There have been others with similar questions. Given that handstands with arms locked are more difficult for flyers because they are using their arms to support their own weight versus a shoulder press with arms bent, NYSPHSAA wanted to further clarify these skills with different names for the purpose of the NYSPHSAA rubric progression sheet. cheerrules.org does not differentiate between the two skills. It is important to understand that a handstand or shoulder press position cannot be achieved without both of the flyer's legs in the air. If one foot is down in the base's hands, it simply becomes a regular inverted position. I also want to take this moment to warn that extended inversions are illegal. When flyers are in a handstand or shoulder press position, make sure the base's hands are below their forehead so it does not become an illegal extended inverted position.
If you perform handstand from ground, pause at prep level for less than one count and immediately press extended one leg, what will you score? If the flyer stops at prep level, even for a moment, it will be considered an inversion to prep level, which has an entry score of 1.0. The press to extended single leg would be considered separately. Handstand to prep level will count as one skill, and the prep to extended single leg would count as the second skill. If you want to get higher on the rubric, it must pass through the prep level right up to that extended single leg to be considered ground level to extended.
Our next question asks, invert to prep to extension does not clarify where the inversion must begin. Can this be handstand on the ground to prep level to extended stunt? Coaches are encouraged to refer to the headings at the top of the inversions category to further define the skills on the coach's progression sheets.
The progression sheet tells us how many additional tenths we will receive for not using front bases, But how many additional tenths will we receive for using full team and not just majority? This depends on the stunt and where it falls on the progression sheet, with transitions, variations, and inversions. So it's difficult to define for coaches on this webinar. Judges do have this information defined for them on their scoring and will apply it accordingly. Where would a prep to 360 extended fall on the rubric? I feel like it would be lower than a 360 extended, correct? Because the 5.8 entry is a full-up extension, a prep to full-up extension is a little more difficult because of the strength and control needed to lift it from the prep to extended level with a 360 involved also. It should probably be approximately 6.5. It's not as high as the 360 quick toss to extension, which has an entry value of 6.8.
My team learned a new skill at camp, but when I submitted it to my section's rule interpreter, they said it was illegal. Can this be right? Unfortunately, we are finding quite often that stunts taught at camps are not always legal. Keep in mind that camps are run by independent organizations that decide what rules to follow and may or may not be checking the legality of stunts they teach with those organizations. Please make sure to clear all new stunts through your local rules interpreter. It is tradition for our school to have our Little Loop cheerleaders perform with us at one of our games. Is this really against the NFHS rules? Yes, per Rule 212, page 12, participation in spirit team activities during interscholastic contests and spirit competitions must be limited to bona fide students of the school who are designated as members of the school's spirit team. Only those students may participate in spirit team activities on the sidelines, court, field, or contest area during an interscholastic event, except when exhibitions during a pregame, halftime, or postgame period are authorized by the administration of the participant school and the host school administration, if applicable. A bona fide student is one who has not graduated and is eligible to participate with and/or compete for a designated school according to NYSPHSAA. To be clear, an eligible participant must be a middle school or high school student. I would also like to take this time to emphasize that all NFHS rules must be followed for all practices, games, competitions, or any other event that cheerleaders attend within the role of high school cheerleader. This includes the rule about jewelry and hair. Half up, half down hair is not acceptable for anything longer than shoulder length hair, and even shoulder length or shorter hair must have the hair pinned back off the face. Please be aware that if a participant is injured while these rules are not being followed, the coach may be legally held liable. Please also be aware that videos being posted online of NFHS rules not being followed could also result in the coach losing any of their coaching certifications by various certifying entities.
Where would a braced flip be scored? I can find a suspended roll, but not a braced flip. You're going to find it under dismounts on both the stunts and the pyramids, rubrics, and on the progression sheets. It is a 6.0 entry score, and you will see it says suspended front flip / braced flip, non-twisting. I have 3 stunt groups to reach 75% for a pyramid. All flyers perform multiple release moves. Do I only get credit for all top people performing multiple release moves? Does that put me at my 3 skills, or do I have to do 2 more separate skills and only receive the credit for the highest value one? Basically, can I double dip with release moves? You can get credit for your multiple releases and the next highest skill within that sequence of multiple releases as another skill. You must then do 1 more skill if using the multiple releases and one of the skills within the sequence for 2 of your 3 skills. If you are using a skill within your multiple releases as a separate skill, you will be then awarded a 9.1 for multiple top people with multiple release moves, plus a skill within the releases. You will still need a 3rd skill, for example, the number of structures to reach your 3 skills, or perhaps dismounts in majority. Your structures are counted throughout your pyramid. As soon as there is a transition and the skill goes back to extended, that is counted as a structure. Structures that end in a single leg stunt will garner higher points than those that are ending in just extended. If you are performing multiple releases by each flyer, how will judges differentiate what flyers did what in order to receive a 9.5 score on the pyramid? On the skill sheet, you would write something like this: multiple release moves with all top people. First flyer, 3 release moves in parentheses, and then list the moves. For example, suspended backflip, front flip, switch up on the way to a single leg stunt. Second and third flyers, 2 release moves in parentheses, ball up to single leg, switch to opposite leg. You would then need 2 other pyramid skills if you want to get the 9.5 for all flyers releasing multiple times. Perhaps structures, dismounts, an inversion, or a single base stunt might be something that you want to consider. It is incumbent upon the coach to be accurate on their skill sheet defining the multiple releases by the multiple flyers, and the judges will be scripting the entire sequence. The pyramid rubric states 4 structures, single leg, and structures is noted as anything you can take a picture of. Would this include hitting 4 body positions to extended? No, body positions are no longer part of the pyramid rubric. In order for 4 structures to be counted, there must be a release or non-release transition between each extended stunt. Flips, rolls, tick-tock, switch-ups, and bump downs are some examples. Transitions must precede all extended structures. In other words, there must be transitions between each of those body positions that are hit. While coaches may choose to use body positions, that is not one of the skills that can be selected in pyramids. And remember that for a structure to count, it must be at the extended level. For pyramid, can the 3 skills be split into more than one pyramid section? Or do they need to be within the same part of the routine? So that if I did 2 pyramids within my routine, would it all be applied towards my 3 pyramid skills? Pyramids are cumulative, therefore you can do 2 separate pyramid sequences and the skills will be evaluated from both to acquire the 3 highest skill scores. In a pyramid, if a team has 4 stunt groups and one group performs a handstand to single leg, does that count towards your team's 1 of 3 difficulty elements? As long as 75% of the team is involved in the pyramid sequence at that time, yes, that skill will be one of your 3 skills. You only need 1 stunt group for the skill to count. In pyramids, if one of the team skills is multiple releases by all flyers and another skill is 5 single-legged structures, and I do not have 100% of my team involved at all times during the pyramid, what will I get credit for? Your team will get credit for 75% of your team for those skills. On your 3rd skill, if all members are involved, you would get 100% credit for that skill. Can you clarify 2.5 high skills on the pyramid progression sheets? Multiple advanced would be more than 1 head over hip rotation, stunts that go above the heads of the bracers at prep level. So braced forward or backward flips would be advanced. Multiple elite would be hip over hip rotation. An example would be the side kick full or a Baja full at 2.5 high braced. The team would need to do more than 1 advanced release to receive a 7.3, an advanced and an elite release, which would start at an 8.3, or 2 elite transitional stunts for the corresponding score of 9.3 as an entry.
Next question asks, if I have 51% of my tumblers performing at least a back handspring tuck or greater skills, will I not be awarded sprinkle points for additional tumbling in my routine because the 51% is all performing the exact same skill, which would be a back handspring back tuck? Also, does sprinkle points go towards running and standing separately, or would this affect all of tumbling? Sprinkle points are awarded for majority, but not for some. Sprinkle points can be awarded for both standing and running tumbling, but are only awarded for skills of higher difficulty than where majority was reached. Our next question is a tumbling question and asks, does tumbling need to be done at the exact same time? For example, could you have 2 lines and the front line does their back handspring, then a moment or so later the back line does their back handspring, So the whole team is doing them, and you can see that there was no recycling. They just weren't at the same time. Coaches are encouraged to use choreography to make it clear that tumbling is not recycled, and showcasing the number of athletes that are performing the skills.
If my team uses flags during our music portion of the routine, will they still get credit for use of props? Credit specific to use of props is only for the cheer portion of the routine. Therefore, if props are used during the music portion of the routine, it will not count towards your use of props in cheer. However, if the prop is used effectively and adds to the visual effect of the routine, the judge may choose to award you credit under the dynamic performance indicator in the overall performance score.
Can music be played during downtime? No, music cannot be played during downtime. There should be nothing happening during that time that would be interpreted as something that the judges need to judge.
Our next question asks, if the cheer ends in a stunt, when does downtime begin? It begins when everyone is on the floor and the music is not playing. And this answer can be found in the rubric and scoring guidelines under downtime. It's a minimum of 5 seconds and a maximum of 15 seconds. It's the time between the cheer and music portions of the routine where a team can prepare for the next section of their routine without being judged. Out-of-bounds deductions do not apply to this time period, as teams can move props on and off the mat. No music can be played during downtime. Downtime begins when all stunts are brought safely down to the mat. Our next question asks, I noticed for the cheer portion that volume, voice projection, is no longer being scored. It is not listed on the rubric. Is that correct? And yes, that is correct. Only the indicators shown on the rubric are being scored. So if we look at the cheer performance section of the cheerleading rubric, and we look over where the red arrow is pointing, we find that the criteria that is being judged are consistent levels of inflection, enunciation, pace, engaging and or leading the crowd, use of skills, and optional use of props. Our next question states, my JV coach and I printed the coaches' progression sheets when they first came out, but the ones on the website are different than the ones we printed. Why are these changing? As new skills are seen and the judges' progression sheets are updated, we will continue to update the coaches' progression sheets. We will work throughout the season to clarify and update skills on the progression sheets. Next question asks, where do we find questions that have already been submitted and answered? Questions that have already been answered are viewable in the previous webinars. We will not duplicate answers. So if you ask the same question that was answered in a previous month, we will not repeat the answer in an upcoming webinar. If you have general questions about these modules, you can submit them to the questions link below the modules on the NYSPHSAA website, and they will be answered in the webinar following your question submission. Good luck to all of our teams competing this fall, and we'll talk to you again on the next webinar.